Arsenal have an interesting run of games that could definitely test Mikel Arteta. Up first is the North London derby, and well, I guess nobody at all has predicted that this is going to be a test for Arsenal. Can anyone, you know what, Nato, let me come to you. Can you even find some sort of an argument for why Spurs could get something out of this?
Well, according to my prediction, probably not. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I think we're seeing a Spurs side who have shown flashes where they have looked good. But I think one of the issues that they've shown in recent weeks and months is just the fact that there's a lack of creativity. I think at times the defensive side of things is good, but you know, it was only a couple of weeks ago when we were watching them play at home against Chelsea and basically create nothing. And I think for as good as Chelsea say were in that game, we're not exactly looking at them thinking they're this defensive juggernaut and you can't create anything against them. So then when I think about, well, how are they going to play against Arsenal? It just seems like it's going to be a tough day for them because there's certain elements in terms of how Spurs want to play as well, whether it's going to be with the set pieces, with the speed and transition and so on. And I think Arsenal are ready to deal with that. Like a long throw into the box for Arsenal, obviously, unless it's against Sunderland, doesn't tend to bring that many troubles. You know, you could see like a cross into the box from a corner, again, not that many troubles. So I think they're going to be trying to match Arsenal at something which Arsenal are probably better at doing. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't see it going Spurs' way, but it's a derby day, so I guess you could say anything's possible.
I mean, I suppose if you wanted to put some sort of argument up, you would say they're away form. That would be a debate you could put forward, but I think it's been easier for them to play a more defensive game away from home because I think your supporters will accept that a little bit more. I think where they've struggled, and Nathan touched on it, is in some of the home games where you know your fan base isn't going to accept you just sitting camped in the edge of your box, and so they want Tottenham to get out and play a little bit, and they've struggled in a lot of games at doing that. They really have. So I think when they've gone away from home, it's been more of an acceptance that they have kept a good shape and been a bit more difficult to beat. Obviously, City early in the season they played pretty well and won away from home, but I think that's the argument you could put up, but I just see Arsenal would breaking them down in the end.
Yeah, that's the only argument.
Yeah.
There's no pressure on them to go and win this game. The pressure's on Arsenal. They're sitting at the top of the table, they're at home, you know, everything is on them to take the game to Spurs, which Spurs will like, which is why they've done well away from home, because they have been organised and they have a good shape defensively. And at the end of the day, if you keep the opposition out, you just need that one chance, that one spark from somebody. And so that's what Spurs will be talking about. They'll be talking about the last thing we do is open up and play, we keep it solid, and then when we get an opportunity, we have to take advantage of it. That's the only way they win.
All right, well, that's just one of the big games in the Premier League coming up this weekend. But Saturday, Newcastle host Manchester City. And you've heard us bang on about how St. James's Park is quite the fortress. But if you look at the stats, it may not be quite the fortress as Don Hutchison or Shaka Hislop has been saying. At least this season, their only win at home has been to Spurs in the League Cup. They've lost to Liverpool, they've lost to Arsenal, and they've lost to Barcelona in the Champions League. And Nathan, we talk so much about that 12th man at St. James's Park, but welcoming a Manchester City, who's one of the big guns, just like we saw there, that Newcastle actually have lost to. Have we overstated their home advantage a bit too much?
Potentially, yes. I think Newcastle are a side this season, in my opinion, where they sort of, we speak about them every so often, but whenever something positive happens, but when it's a little bit more negative, it's quite easy to sort of move on from, because we remember that positive, remember the crowd, remember them in the Champions League, for example, looking good and doing well, and sort of spells within games, like not least of all against that game against Liverpool, or like you could argue a spell against Arsenal. But in reality, I think the way that they started the season domestically isn't as good as Eddie Howe would want at all. And I think they find themselves in this sort of funny position in and around mid-table and not really contesting for those high spots at this moment in time. But I think for them, you know, in some ways, I think Newcastle as a club, as a fan base, for as good as they are, I think they prefer the role of an underdog. So I think that's when people get that sense of the 12th man, get that sense of like nostalgia towards different times for Newcastle where we can all remember the crowd being up and historic results for them. So yeah, I think in some ways it has been overall a disappointing start to the season for them. They've probably not scored enough goals, and even though the defensive is solid in the grand scheme of things, it's not really been exciting. But for them playing against Man City, I think they beat them in the League Cup last year. So it's a great chance for them to potentially springboard into this next part of the season to where there are no international breaks now till March time.
Don't you think Newcastle are underdogs in this game? Well, the seat I'm sat, I think they're the underdogs. The seat I'm
this
sat,
game?
Aye.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
City 100% are going to control most of the game. And this Newcastle, we talk about the Newcastle fan base, they don't need much to get going. All it needs is a turnover and a break, and then they are absolutely on fire. So this, in some ways, will suit City, Newcastle. That's why I've gone for a draw. I don't see how Haaland doesn't score, quite frankly. Nobody's going to be able to stop him. And there's a question mark over City's backline. Yes, I think they've only let 4 goals in the last 7 or 8 games, which would suggest that they're getting better. But this, absolutely, on the break, which is the one thing that City don't like, is exactly what Newcastle's going to do to them. So I think this does suit them. I think Nedum's right. They like being underdogs, and when they're underdogs at home, that crowd doesn't take an awful lot to get behind them.
We talked about this a day or two ago with Shaka, actually, and you know, we were talking about their away form, and I said, well, their away form, they're 15th in the league, their home form, they're 14th, which, as you say, their home form hasn't been much better. But Shaka did make the point, and I think there is validity to it, that their performances at home have been better, and they've been close. Now, being close and getting it done are two different things, but they played well against Arsenal, they played well against Liverpool, they played well for a good hour or so against Barcelona until Pedri and De Jong took control of the game, but they were very competitive. Now, at some point you have to get over the line. So I think there is some argument to that away from home they've had the struggles, haven't played particularly well. At home they haven't got the results, but they've played some good football. Now they've got to take that to the next step. Can they do it this weekend? I mean, again, I've gone for a draw. I could have went, you know, I was a draw or I was a City win. That's kind of where I am, because, you know, going forward at the moment, City look the real deal. And although we've talked about them defensively, as Stevie said, they haven't shipped a lot of goals, and I've just loved young Nico O'Reilly's performances at left back. Absolutely love watching that young guy play. But it is a close one, and I think, you know, we had an interview with Voltemada yesterday, and he looks quite comfortable in a Newcastle jersey. They are a side that can cause you a lot of problems. They're not going to just sit on the back foot for the bulk of the game. So I think this is actually going to be a real good game, and a big test of City's back four, to be honest.
Well, Nedum, I think you slightly agree there, because you've gone for a Manchester City win, but you have them conceding 2 goals.
Slightly agree.
Well, because he's gone for the City win and you went for the draw. But obviously, Nedum, that backline at City is a concern for you in this one.
No, to be honest, I don't see it as a concern in that manner, because I think they defend in a sort of different way. And I think even though, you know, people have a sense that the defence isn't as good as it needs to be, I think their defensive record this season, I think it's either 2nd or 3rd best in the league. So clearly something's going well for them. But I think the point I wanted to make there was about this game for Newcastle. Like, Newcastle could win the game against Man City, the score could be anything, but from a Newcastle perspective there has to be consistency, because even in the way that we're talking about them now in this last few minutes, we're almost affording them the chance to, like, you know, we're sort of whitewashing their inconsistencies, because as crazy as it may sound, I just had a look at the table then, they're 1 point ahead of Leeds United, 2 points ahead of Burnley, 3 points ahead of West Ham, and these are 3 clubs who we're looking at saying, well, you know, they're not having a great season. So I think from a Newcastle perspective, yes, it's great that you can get up for these big games where you are the underdog, even though you're amongst 50, 60,000. But for a side that's playing in the Champions League, you can't really be looking at sort of 12 points, whatever it is, from 12 games and say, you know, that is going to be enough.
Club football is back this weekend. A couple of enticing fixtures, but there has been some injury news to bring you. Arne Slot saying that Florian Wirtz and Connor Bradley will both miss at least the Forest game. Pep Guardiola saying that Rodri is still out but making progress. Arsenal's Gabriel was set to miss at least a month after picking up an injury with Brazil, but Cole Palmer has suffered a fresh setback. He's going to miss the next 3 games after, get this, fracturing a toe in an accident at home.
Fracturing it?
Yes.
Fracturing?
Well, that's what the headline said.
Is
You
it?
thought he just stubbed it?
I thought he stubbed it.
Well, apparently he has to wear the boot now, but I don't know what he's doing at home, but maybe a little pickup game? No?
These things happen.
These things happen. All right, well, which one stands out to you
How many times
guys?
have you fractured a toe at home? Yeah.
A couple of times.
Sometimes you're walking past the bedpost. You ever hit your toe there?
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
The pinky kills you. But anyways, which one of these injuries stands out to you guys, Craig?
I forgot them.
Well, you have no
Well,
Wirtz, no Connor Bradley,
Well, actually, you know,
no Gabriel at Arsenal.
Florian Wirtz is an interesting. He continues to be an interesting one because he played well for Germany against a poor Slovakia side, that has to be said. But he did play well, created chances, and it would have been interesting to see, but for this injury, what Arne Slot's thought process was on his return playing against Nottingham Forest at home, I believe. So that one, I mean, Gabriel we know is a big player, set pieces defensively, but and Arteta said it, they have some cover, so they should be okay. But I think Wirtz was going to be an interesting one, because was he going to go back into the team, or was he going to continue on the bench? So I suppose at this moment in time we won't know the answer to that.
Stevie, which one stands out to you?
I'm 100% going with Florian Wirtz. I thought this would be the ideal scenario. At home against Nottingham Forest, the team that you're supposed to beat. He's coming off a couple of assists for Germany. Anybody who does anything, anybody who scores goals, who makes goals, who has a great game, the next time they step on the field, they feel 10 feet tall. And they feel ready that something good's going to happen. And the fact that he has been struggling in the Premier League, this would have been a great opportunity, because of the opposition, because of playing well for Germany, to get him on the field, because he has to acclimatise and get used to the pace of the Premier League, and he's only going to do that if he's on the field. So for me, 100% it's Florian Wirtz. This would have been the ideal time to get him on the ball, because Liverpool will have plenty of the ball against Forest. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
Nedum, of course, for Arsenal, it's a big blow to not have Gabriel, even though Craig said that they do have a squad that they shouldn't suffer too much. But we do know exactly how much of a stalwart he has been, especially in that back line for the Gunners. If you're looking at this from your Manchester City goggles, is this some blood in the water that City may be smelling?
Well, to be honest, City still need to handle business away at Newcastle, so I'm not sure about that. But in terms of him being unavailable, I think it's fair to say that if he is available, he will be starting. I think himself and Saliba have formed probably one of the best partnerships we've seen in the last, say, 4 or 5 years. So I think that is going to be a blow for them. But as Craig said, they do have the squad. They do have Nkapia there. They have the Calafiori. They could play Mosquera there as well. So they do have options. But the option that Arteta trusts the most is Gabriel playing left centre half. So I think that could be an interesting sort of like question mark for them going forward, especially because he's going to be out for a month. And it's not to say that, you know, the defence isn't necessarily going to be good because he's not there, but it's different. Not least of all the set piece element of it in terms of defending and attacking, and it changes the rhythm just that little bit. Because for Arteta, for as much as he has his squad, there's certain players that he always wants to play, and Gabriel is one of them. But I think to piggyback on what the guys were saying as well, like I get the Wirtz thing, but I've got to say, like personally, I think Cole Palmer and Rodri are in an interesting position as well, because for Cole Palmer, you know, his career is still relatively young in the grand scheme of things, and he's done so well. He's played in the European Championship final and so on. But this last period now has been his toughest period. Last year, back half of the season, wasn't as prolific as we've seen in times gone by, and then now this season, he's seen his Chelsea side do well without him, to the point where if he was to come back in, who exactly does he come in for? So that's a question mark. And then Rodri as well, you know, trying to recover from that knee injury, but as many people would have expected, it's not just the knee anymore. You know, it's a hip injury, it's the thigh injury, it's a hamstring injury, and he can't get back in the flow that sort of led him to essentially winning that Ballon d'Or. So there are lots of little storylines within this, but I think in terms of people who've been playing well this season, they've been standout. I think for me, it's probably Gabriel that's going to be the biggest miss this weekend.
Craig, what do you think about what Nedum had to say about Cole Palmer now, and just the fact that he has been out for a while now? He's gotten another setback, and Chelsea have improved even without him. Of course, not saying that there's no place for him in this team, but something to think about.
Well, they've not improved enough, but I mean, to be where they want to be. But I think just whether he can come back in and pick up the slack of where he was before, you know, that, I don't know what it was, 12 months, 18 months ago, when he just seemed to be week in, week out doing something spectacular. Certainly for his club. Whether he can do that again, coming in with a slightly different personnel there with João Pedro and one or two others, Esteval, who looks really, really lively. So yeah, that's going to be, it actually reminded me, talking about the toe of former teammate of mine, Dave Besant, who dropped the, as a goalkeeper, the salad cream fell out of the kitchen cupboard.
Broke his toe?
And Dave wasn't able to grab it in time, and it sliced it, the glass smashed right in the corner of his toe, and it slashed it open so much as he needed stitches. So these things do happen, not as often as you would imagine, but yeah, Cole Palmer, I think Chelsea cut a long story short, Chelsea need to get Cole Palmer fit again and operating as we know he can if they're going to have a real chance of pushing the teams at the top all the way.
Start off with any clarity you can give us on Gabriel and how serious that injury is.
Yeah, Gabriel unfortunately picked up an injury with the Brazilian national team, and he's going to be out for weeks.
Can you give us any more clarity?
No, we need to have another scan. I think it's next Wednesday, and we'll have the timeline probably much more clear than we have at the moment.
It's clearly a blow, but have you ever felt more comfortable about the players that you can actually bring in and the options that you have when you have injuries like this?
Yeah, it's clearly a blow because it's our leader in our backline, and to missing obviously is never a positive thing. The good thing, as you mentioned, is that we have very good options, and people have to stand up now and do the job.
Riccardo Calafiori missed the Italy games. Is he okay?
Yeah, he missed it. He wasn't available. He's been carrying a few things, and we have to bring him back. And he hasn't trained yet, so tomorrow we have another training session and see how he is.
What chance the other injuries that you've had in Gyökeres, Martinelli, and the other longer term ones in Jesus, Havertz, Madueke, and have I missed anyone there?
Yeah, we put a lot of energy during the international break with all the medical staff as well to try to bring them as quick as possible. So tomorrow we have another training session, see how some of them are feeling, whether it's a bit too close to bring them in this game or we feel that they can have a contribution in the game. So tomorrow we'll have more clarity.
So there is a possibility some of them could be in the squad?
Yeah, well, I'm hopeful that we can make another step tomorrow, but certainly I cannot tell you.
And you can tell us the names of those?
No,
I didn't think so.
I can.
I know you've spoken about the North London derby before, but you've managed the North London derby. You've played in some of the most ferocious derbies in world football. What makes this one so unique, so special for you?
It's just different. I mean, it's a big city, but it's a big rivalry. It's a part of London that we want to conquer. They want to do the same. There's been a lot of shifts as well over the years as well. Who's been more dominant, and it's just beautiful, especially when we play at home in front of our people. We know what it means to them, and the energy that they're going to bring, the energy that the team is going to bring in every single action, and it's just a privilege to play those kind of games. So we cannot wait to get to Sunday.
You mentioned the fans, and obviously it means so much to both sets of fans. But how big is a challenge is it to separate what their needs are and trying to focus on what is just a game that you want to win and you must win to get 3 points?
It's about bringing it into the table. That's the context of the game, and that's a superpower. You know, when you have everybody playing with that passion and with their emotion with the team every single ball, it makes a difference. And we've been very privileged the way that the fans have been with us at the Emirates, and especially against our rivals. And on Sunday, I'm sure that the team is going to behave and make them very proud.
You mentioned the recent record. It has been very good. From your perspective, 5 wins and a draw in your last 6 North London derbies. Can you put your finger on why the record has been so good? Have you been able to separate the actual occasion with the actual game? Yeah,
it's a game that emotionally requires something else, and you cannot be too hype, but at the same time, that game demands that in every ball, in every action, you have to be at it a bit more than in any other game. And we have found a really good balance. Obviously, we played well. Sometimes we have decided to win. Sometimes we've been a bit lucky as well to win. That's fair as well to say. So on Sunday, we need a really, really good performance to beat them.
I wonder, Mikel, if you've seen Wayne Rooney's comments about his 3 outstanding players of the season so far.
No.
Semenyo was one.
Good.
Brian Mbeumo was one.
Okay.
Victor Gyökeres was the 3rd one.
That one is very good.
Just following up on that, he has come under a bit of criticism. Can you allow yourself a little smile like you're doing now?
Well, I'm really glad that this is coming from someone like Wayne, his experience and the kind of player that he was. I'm sure it then is not just related to the goals that he has scored, but the contribution to the team number 9 can do and the impact that Victor has in our team. His work rate and the way he opens the spaces for other people, the time that he generates for us, and then as well the level of threat that he's brought to the team, which is magnificent. So really happy to hear that.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks very much. We'll go to Jake from PLP. Hi.
Hi.
How different a challenge, though, is Tottenham this season than they were last season, do you think?
Well, I think every game is very different, and in the same season as well, depending on the momentum of each team, the games are very, very different. I think Thomas has brought something very different to what they had before as well, and you just have to see his record and how remarkable job he did in his previous club, and he's given a very clear identity to the team, how they want to play, how they want to compete, and it will be very tough.
Some people have suggested that where they are in the Premier League table has maybe flattered them based on how they played. What are your thoughts on that?
I think when you start to be in the part of the season that we are, I think you have to really earn the right to be where you are. And I think they've done a lot of very, very good things that they deserve to win. They won in some tough places as well. The record away from home has been very impressive as well. So you need to merit that. Nobody gives you anything in this league.
Manchester City play tomorrow night, obviously ahead of you. If they win, they'll be 1 point behind you. Do you feel them kind of coming after you a bit?
No, everybody's going to try to win every game, the same as we are going to do. We just have to go game by game, control the things that we can do, prepare very well tomorrow. For Sunday, we have a beautiful game ahead of us, and that's what we can control.
And just lastly, a big opportunity for whoever you decide to play in place of Gabriel.
Yes, for sure, and that's what we're looking for. And the good thing is that we have rotate and play players in different positions very, very early in the season, and whoever plays is going to be ready to do that.
Alex, BBC.
Hi, Mikel. Start of a big week with Tottenham on Sunday, then into Bayern Munich, and then another London derby the following Sunday. How would you prepare and deal with these matches coming up, especially when you've got the injury issues you have at the moment?
Well, we've done the preparation and the international break. We knew that that was coming, was again very intense but beautiful as well. We have a very tough start of the season as well. We're ready for that. And now have everybody healthy, of the most of them healthy, which is a key thing obviously, and then again get in the rhythm, start to generate momentum again. We are in a really good moment, and we need to continue to do that game by game, because the games are going to be very, very thick and fast, and we need to be ready. Everybody has to be at it.
It's not just Arsenal that are suffering with injuries at the moment, Tottenham as well. I'm seeing it across football. A large part of both squads could be out if they don't come back for the match on Sunday. But do you think injuries are taking away from the quality of the game at the moment?
Well, injuries are part of football. Obviously, the demands that those players have in the way that the schedule is, obviously, is more demands than ever, and probably that's going to bring more injuries. We will try to avoid that as much as possible, but you can see that in many clubs, even in different countries as well. So we're going to have to live with that.
And then just on Gabriel Jesus, how is he getting on in his rehabilitation?
Very good. So he's doing everything with the team at the moment for the last almost 2 weeks. We're going to give him some exposure as well internally with some games, so he gets that fitness. But he looks really good in training, and he's going to be
The future of Ethan Nwanery's potential loan move is suddenly uncertain, as Arsenal remain wary of repeating past setbacks caused by injuries. According to recent reports, the club is open to sending the young midfielder out on loan this winter, but the idea raises immediate questions. Nwanery has become the talk of the moment after a report from the Daily Mail suggested that Arsenal are considering a temporary move for the 18-year-old. Despite his limited minutes this season, the thought of letting him leave, even temporarily, comes with significant doubts. Back in October, Mikel Arteta publicly insisted that Nwanery would have plenty of opportunities to play, pointing to the fact that the teenager had already been called upon when Martin Odegaard was injured. "I don't know, but I don't work with expectations," Arteta said at the time. "I work with what the players can give in the context of where the team is at that moment." Ethan played 2 Premier League matches early on because Martin was out. He's played in other competitions and he'll play more. Yet the reality has been very different. Nwanery has logged fewer than 500 minutes this season, appearing in just 5 of Arsenal's 11 Premier League games, none of them as a starter. His only starts came in the 2 EFL Cup wins over Port Vale and Brighton, and in the 3-0 Champions League victory against Slavia Prague. The arrival of Ebereki Eze and the promotion of Max Daumann have tightened competition even further. And despite injuries to Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, and Noni Madueke, Nwaneri's pathway has only narrowed. It's easy to forget how young he still is. At 18, and having first debuted at just 15, like Daumann, these are formative years where consistent playing time is crucial. The busy festive period could open that door, but with Odegaard, Madueke, and Kai Havertz all nearing their returns, there's a real chance Nwaneri could slide even further down the pecking order. This is why a January loan sounds logical on paper, but it also sets off alarm bells. Arsenal's season has already been shaped by injuries for the second year in a row, and squad depth has never felt more essential. A single setback among the attacking players over the holiday fixture run could thrust Nwaneri back into an important role almost overnight. The more sensible approach may be to reassess in the summer, once the squad naturally reshapes and the club have a clearer picture of their needs heading into 2025. Only then would a loan feel more secure, ensuring Nwaneri actually gets the minutes he needs rather than risking another stalled development. Even then, nothing is guaranteed. Supporters will remember Serge Gnabry's loan to West Brom, intended to push him closer to first-team football, but ultimately a move that derailed his progress before he rebuilt his career in Germany. Arsenal's recent history with loans has been mixed at best, and too often unsuccessful. For now, the club must weigh the immediate needs of the squad against the long-term growth of one of their brightest prospects. Whether a loan becomes the right option, or another cautionary tale, remains to be seen. But the complexity of Nwaneri's situation extends beyond simply playing time and squad depth. Inside the club, there is an ongoing debate about how quickly young talents should be exposed to the pressures of elite-level football. Some staff members argue that Nwaneri's technical level is already above many players his age and that keeping him close to Arteta's structure will accelerate his development. Others believe that without consistent starts, and without a clear pathway to earn them, his progress could plateau. The uncertainty has also stirred conversation among supporters and pundits. Several former Arsenal players have expressed concern that the club may be repeating old patterns, where promising youngsters become trapped between first-team aspirations and inconsistent minutes. Others, however, believe the club is being careful for the right reasons, protecting a player who still needs physical development before facing the demands of weekly Premier League battles. This internal and external pressure has placed added scrutiny on Arteta's handling of young talents this season. While he has been praised for trusting academy graduates in the past, the balance has become harder to maintain now that Arsenal are competing on multiple fronts and aiming for silverware. Every decision carries weight. Resting senior players risks losing points, while overusing inexperienced teenagers risks injury or decline in confidence. There is also the broader question of what kind of loan would actually benefit Nwaneri, should the club eventually decide to pursue one. A move to a Premier League side fighting relegation could offer minutes, but expose him to a demanding environment that prioritizes survival over development. A Championship loan, on the other hand, might provide consistent matches, but at the cost of adjusting to a more physical style that does not always align with Arsenal's tactical identity. European options have been mentioned as well, though not confirmed. The possibility of joining a club in the Netherlands or Germany, leagues known for nurturing young talent, has been discussed quietly among observers. Yet Arsenal are hesitant, given how unpredictable such moves can be and how often they fail to produce the expected results. Meanwhile, Nwaneri himself remains focused and professional, according to those around the training ground. He is said to be eager for opportunities, but not frustrated or discouraged. The coaching staff admire his attitude, which only complicates the decision further. He is doing everything right, and still his future remains uncertain. As Arsenal approach the January window, the club finds itself at a crossroads. The next few weeks will likely be decisive, not just for Nwaneri's short-term career, but for how Arsenal choose to manage their most gifted prospects in an era of high expectations and relentless schedules. Any decision made now will be examined closely, not only because of what it means for Nwaneri, but because it will signal how the club intends to balance ambition with development as they move into the next phase of Arteta's project. Arsenal now face a difficult setback. Piero Hincapié may have to step into the North London derby under less than ideal circumstances after Gabriel's injury blow. The club is hoping that Hincapié's long late return trip to North London won't affect his readiness to replace Gabriel against Tottenham, because losing the Brazilian for such a crucial match is a major hit to Mikel Arteta's plans. Arsenal have already been forced to cope with key absences at various stages of the season, but Gabriel missing the derby presents a challenge of a very different magnitude. Naturally, the focus shifts to who will fill the gap on the left side of Arsenal's defense, and for many, the most logical answer is Piero Hincapié. The summer signing impressed during his only start for the club so far, an outstanding display at left centre-back in the League Cup win over Brighton. That night, he partnered with Christian Mosquera, who is also an option for Arteta on Sunday. One possible configuration would see William Saliba move to the left, with Mosquera taking his place on the right, depending on how heavily Hincapié's international travel weighs on Arteta's decision. And that travel is far from insignificant. The Ecuadorian defender is currently away with his national team. He captained Ecuador during their 0-0 draw with Canada, helping secure the clean sheet. But the real concern comes with his final international fixture. Ecuador face New Zealand in New Jersey in the early hours of Wednesday morning, UK time. The match kicks off at 1:30 a.m. and is expected to finish around 4 a.m. Only after that will Hincapié board his flight back to England, meaning he won't arrive in London until Wednesday afternoon at the earliest. From there, he will have just a handful of days to recover, settle back in, and prepare for one of the most intense fixtures of the season. The slight silver lining is that the derby falls late in the weekend, giving him as much time as possible to reintegrate. Still, the timing of his return is far from ideal and adds yet another layer of uncertainty to Arsenal's defensive preparations ahead of a match that could define their momentum for weeks to come. Beyond the logistical headache, Arteta and his staff must also consider the physical and tactical demands that a North London derby imposes. It is not the sort of match where a defender can arrive underprepared, particularly against a Tottenham side that has looked sharp in attack this season. Any hesitation, any lapse in intensity caused by travel fatigue, could be costly. Inside Arsenal, there is a quiet concern that the club may once again be walking a tightrope with its defensive depth. Over the past 2 seasons, injuries at the back have forced Arteta into uncomfortable choices, and Gabriel's setback reopens a conversation that the club hoped was behind them. The manager has repeatedly emphasized the importance of continuity across the defensive line, especially given how central the high defensive line and controlled build-up are to Arsenal's identity. Gabriel and Saliba have been at the core of that stability, and disrupting it inevitably changes the team's rhythm. Analysts close to the club have noted that Hincapié's profile fits the role well, confident under pressure, quick across the ground, and capable of progressing the ball with either foot. However, they also caution that he is still adapting to the Premier League's pace and physicality. Throwing him straight into a derby environment may accelerate his integration, but it also carries risk. Supporters have expressed mixed reactions as well. Many are eager to see Hincapié given a real opportunity, believing his style suits Arsenal's long-term plans. Others worry that asking him to deliver immediately, under difficult circumstances, could place unnecessary pressure on a player still in the early stages of adjusting to English football. The timing of Gabriel's injury also complicates Arsenal's broader goals. With a congested winter schedule approaching and the title race tightening, every match takes on heightened importance. Dropping points against Tottenham could shift momentum, not just in the standings but in confidence across the squad. It also forces Arteta to rethink how he manages minutes for defenders who have already logged heavy workloads this season. Club insiders say the staff have been preparing contingency plans for weeks, anticipating scenarios where international duties and injuries overlap. Yet even the best planning can be stretched thin when travel delays and late-night kickoffs are added to the equation. In the coming days, the medical and performance teams will conduct assessments to determine exactly how ready Hincapié is for Sunday's showdown. Arteta is expected to make a late decision, balancing long-term health with short-term necessity. The hope is that the Ecuadorian arrives in good condition, responds well to training, and can at least offer a reliable solution in Gabriel's absence. What remains undeniable is that Arsenal enter the derby under a new layer of pressure, forced to adapt, to trust their depth, and to test the resilience that has been a defining theme of their season so far.